Okay, good morning, friends. We're going to look at a page of Spirit Girl number 3, page 1, and just look at panel layout, philosophy, composition, and that sort of thing. Here's some things I learned. You'll want to, do your own research into this, but hopefully this gives you a bit of an idea of the kind of thinking that can go into panel layouts for your comic book. So first, it's 4-panel grid, 1, 2, 3, 4 panels. I wanted to experiment with that. There's a few reasons why. Mark Miller does this a lot. He's talked about it. It's one of the more cinematic things, cinematic ways of doing a comic. So you can think about it in terms of rhythm, musical rhythm. 4/4 beat is kind of like a rock beat, and I do find when you read a 4-panel grid, the pacing feels quick, feels like it feels exciting. 9-panel grid is more like a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Moves along a little bit more slowly. Next is DC Comics Guide to Writing Comics by Denny O'Neil. Says establish the conflict early on as soon as possible from page 1 if possible. So here on page 1 we have panel 1, a king who accuses this man here. It's just an accusation. What do you have to say in your defense? So from panel 1, we have the conflict. We also, just graphically, it's demonstrating that the king and this gentleman here that we don't know, to his left, are placed higher in perspective than the man being accused. And even on the next panel, if you look at the eye line here, we see that it's lower, right, than the king. One character is superior than the other. Even his facial expression, he's looking upwards, kind of in a snooty way, down to the subject. And then the conflict is amplified a little bit here with the king kind of dismissing the subject from his sight and dismissing the subject's defense against the accusation. So straight away we have a conflict, and that's what's interesting. The stories without conflict are barely stories at all. Another thing is we have an angle here, so it's angled this way, right, which adds tension. So when you have composition that's straight down and horizon straight down, that's a bit more of a symmetrical composition. Evokes more stillness, harmony. Symmetry is harmony. Here we have already tension expressed in the way we've angled our panel. I believe this is called a Dutch angle, from Dutch filmmaking philosophy or something like that. I've heard it called Dutch angle. Another compositional thing here is the values. So you want to balance your in this case, your blacks, your whites, and your grays. So I've got 3 tones that I'm working with. You want to balance them out. So on the top corner, we have a panel that's bleeding out all the way to the outside of the page with a lot of black, which is reflected across to the other corner, with a panel that's also bleeding out with a lot of black here. So those panels are mirroring each other. Now from this we have a lot of white, not so much black, a lot of white, not so much black, and heavy yellow and gray. So we have the character from panel to panel kind of mirroring each other, right? So even though this king is pointing at us, there's a visual cue that it's related to this guy here. Now, word balloons, when I'm planning, I'm doing panel layouts, thumbnails for these, I always first keep in mind where the word balloon is going to go. Now, that generally your top third, you should think about reserving it for word balloon narrative captions. But it's not the only place it can go, obviously, right? You know, your word balloon placement is the most powerful thing for directing how the viewer is going to move their eye across, right? That's sort of like the general motion. Let's see, other things to keep in mind. Here's some foreshortening in this panel here, which is always a strong, you know, it's foreshortening and pointing at the viewer, which places the viewer as the accused. So the viewer is, the reader rather is, well, viewer reader, I guess, is going to identify with this main character here, Belchier. So when you're planning out your panel composition through a page, don't go just panel by panel and only compose what's in the panel. Think of it as a whole page and how it will work as a whole, right? I guess another thing here to consider is that this character is walking outside the gate, which is a very subtle cue. Of course, it's expressing that he's being kind of banished from the sight of the king. So this king is pointing at him and he's being banished, and he's got a dejected body language here. But it's also, this is kind of a panel here. So it's implying going into the next page. So you got your page turn here, right? Another thing is framing we can talk about. So your important features here. So the king speaking, you want to try to think about placing your contrast in such a way as to highlight the main thing of the image here, right? So the king here is framed by a throne, right? And these subjects are all framed by all this black, right? This one's an even more powerful example of framing. Your character here is in heavy black, but it's surrounded by this very powerful compositional element, which is the gate, and these lines here, they're kind of pointing lines. So this is all pushing towards this figure here, right? Which also artistically indicates like constricting. This character is being constricted and pushed, which is psychologically, emotionally how the character feels and tells you something about what the story is about here. Yeah, word balloons, your tails should generally point roughly towards the character's head. That's a mistake that's easy to make. Not just the character. Try to point it towards their head. That seems to work better. And where possible, you can't always do this. If you've got like a multi-balloon, like joined balloons with several pieces of dialogue here, try to have the first tail point towards the head. Try to think about that. It's difficult when you got a lot of dialogue, but try to think about that. Now, as for word balloons, the conventional wisdom is 20 to 25 words maximum per balloon. And I think per page is 10 to 15 balloons maximum. You want to try to trim down your dialogue as much as possible so that it's not too heavy in balloons. At least that's what the pros say. So that's a bit behind my philosophy of doing Spirit Girl. Spirit Girl 3 is available for sale. It's my best work yet. It's a really good story. I know the creators would always say that, but when my wife and I read it, when it was finally ready, we actually started having a conversation about some pretty deep stuff of life and stuff, which is an indication that this story is actually about something, and it's worth reading. There will be some links below on where you can get Spirit Girl number 3. Please consider getting it. It's a 32-page comic. There's really a lot going on here, and it really sets up a lot about the world of this story going forward. It's really a good comic. I really believe that, and I'm very excited to get it to you. Thanks for your attention. See you in the next one. God bless. Travel to the faraway continent of Estland. Immerse yourself in a grim tapestry of forbidden magic, ancient curses, and blood-soaked intrigue. Follow along as Berchier, chieftain of the Khal, a towering race of giants, shackled by a ban on sorcery, faces accusations of wielding forbidden powers. But a plucky young mage gambles his life to shield the doomed Berchier and his people. Centuries pass. The cursed Khal claw through the lightless depths of the veins. Their savage clashes and profane rituals birth the guileful villain Stormhand. Ancient bitterness festers across generations. Its dark tides now surge toward the unsuspecting town of Hairy Bear. This 30-page comic is richly layered with meaning and alive with atmosphere. Plunge into a haunting fantasy epic laced with arcane mysteries and foreboding awe.